Welcome to this rigorous, high-stakes explainer on a notoriously tricky Cambridge AS and A-level accounting topic. We are diving deep into control accounts for sales and purchases ledgers. If you're studying syllabus 9706, you already know that this topic can sometimes feel like an absolute minefield. It's not just about balancing some numbers on a page, it's about proving to the examiner that you understand the entire interconnected financial ecosystem of a business. Today, we are going to look directly through the examiner's lens. As your master coach, I'm here to break down the theoretical architecture, the technical methodology, and the high-level evaluation skills that separate the average, struggling candidates from the top-tier elite. We are going to dissect complex question structures, master your time allocation, and deploy critical thinking strategies that are guaranteed to level up your marks. So let's decode this together and map out a crystal-clear path to mastery. Straight from the principal examiner reports, we have this stark, high-stakes hook that highlights exactly why we need to master this immediately. The senior examiner literally states that this is one of the most misunderstood areas in the entire accounting syllabus. Now, you might be asking yourself, why? Why do so many smart candidates hit a wall here? Well, imagine two different types of students sitting in a study suite right now working on the same past paper. Let's call them Alex and Sam. Alex is highly technical. Alex excels at memorizing formulas and facts, but completely freezes up when it comes to open-ended evaluation. On the flip side, we have Sam. Sam is a creative, big-picture thinker, great at forming arguments, but seriously struggles with structural precision, format conventions, and time management. When both of them look at a high-tariff 15-mark control account question, they both fail to get top marks, but for entirely different reasons. Alex treats it like a simple data entry exercise, mindlessly plugging in numbers without understanding the why. Sam writes an essay that completely ignores the required ledger formats. Both are missing the core truth. Control accounts are the ultimate check and balance system. When you misunderstand this, you aren't just losing a few calculation marks. You are showing the examiner a fundamental gap in your grasp of accounting controls. But that stops today. We are going to fix that right now by looking at the exact data on where things go wrong and how to build a flawless response. Here is our structural blueprint for today's masterclass. First, unlocking control accounts. Second, the procedural framework. Third, critical analysis. And finally, surviving examiner traps. Let's move right into section 1, unlocking control accounts, core principles. There is a fascinating, undeniable contrast between candidates who struggle and those who consistently achieve top grades. The basic approach, which is exactly what our hypothetical student Alex relies on, is just memorizing isolated formulas. It's simply remembering that a dishonored check goes on the debit side of the sales ledger control account, or knowing where to drop in bad debts recovered. But the Cambridge syllabus explicitly emphasizes that top-performing students exhibit a deeply connected conceptual understanding. Principal examiner reports continually highlight that candidates who reference cross-topic connections achieve significantly higher marks. What does that actually mean for you in the exam hall? It means you have to build evidence-based reasoning. If you see a discrepancy in the sales ledger control account, you shouldn't just stare at it. You need to immediately recognize how it links to a suspense account, or how it affects the correction of errors topic, or even incomplete records. You have to prove to the examiner that you see the whole board, not just a single piece. If a business has missing records, the control account isn't just a ledger. It becomes your primary investigative tool to find missing credit sales or missing purchases. That is top-tier mastery. You are no longer just doing math, you are performing financial forensics. Let's step into section 2, the procedural framework. Execution matters. The crucial point here is the method mark strategy. Listen closely, because if there is one absolute secret weapon in your accounting toolkit, it is this. Cambridge examiners actively award marks for the process. Let me say that again. They award marks for your process, not just your final numerical answer. This proves that demonstrating your systematic processing is just as vital as finding the correct final balance. Imagine you are under immense time pressure, and you make a tiny, careless calculator error on the very first line of a complex purchases ledger control account. You accidentally type a 5 instead of a 6. If you are doing all your math hidden away in your head and you just write down the final wrong balance, you get a 0. The examiner has no idea how you arrived at that number. But if you apply the method mark strategy, if you explicitly show your logical working, clearly label your contra entries, use proper headings, and write down your systematic process step by step, the examiner can track your logic. Even with that initial calculator error, the examiner will apply an own figure rule, and you can still scoop up the vast majority of the marks for that entire question. The process is the prize. Never, ever hide your workings.
Now, right before we break down the exact 5-step execution sequence to guarantee those method marks, I need to pause our session for a quick, crucial reminder. Crushing Cambridge exams requires consistent weekly strategy. So right now, hit that subscribe button for the Ace the Exams IGCSE O and A Levels channel. That's at acetheexam_IGCSE. Make sure you click the notification bell and enable all notifications so you never miss one of our breakthrough strategy sessions. We are constantly deconstructing these papers and you need this edge. Okay, let's get back to it. To secure those method marks, there is a standardized 5-step sequence you absolutely must follow. First, identify the key elements from the provided data block. Highlight your opening balances, your cash book receipts, and your journal entries. Second, apply the relevant accounting principles. This is where you decide if an item impacts the control account or only the individual ledger. Third, execute your analysis with crystal clear working. Write it out. Fourth, verify your results. Does the closing balance make a logical sense given the scenario? And fifth, present the information in the appropriate format. The source material violently stresses that presentation follows strict conventions. Proper balance brought down and balance carried down notations are not optional. This isn't about making your paper look pretty. It's about communicating professional competence and structural precision to the examiner.
Moving on to Section 3, Critical Analysis, Higher Order Thinking. This is where we separate the A grades from the A stars. Top-tier students use this exact deconstruct, solve, evaluate, problem-solving model when faced with complex, unfamiliar accounting contexts. Step 1, deconstruct. You literally rip the given scenario apart. You are scanning for hidden constraints, specific dates, and anomalous data. Step 2, solve. You analyze it systematically, mapping out your accounts logically. Step 3, evaluate. You check for reasonableness and make justified recommendations. Let's talk about command word anatomy here. There is a massive, fundamental difference between the command word analyze and the command word evaluate, or explain versus to what extent. If the prompt says explain, you are just providing clarity on a concept. But if the prompt says to what extent or evaluate, you are entering higher order territory. It is this third step, evaluate, that students consistently miss. Examiners want to see you drawing hard conclusions based on the evidence you just calculated. If your control account reveals massive irrecoverable debts, your evaluation must explicitly judge the effectiveness of the company's credit control policies. You can't just state the number, you have to judge what that number means for the survival of the business.
When we look at how this builds into the actual assessment objectives, your AO1, AO2, and AO3 marking criteria, it's incredibly clear that your written analysis must elevate from merely descriptive to fully evaluative. Let's look at this breakdown. At the descriptive level, it's just basic identification. You state facts. The business has bad debts. That gets you barely anything. At the analytical level, you deploy comparative analysis. You show similarities and differences with evidence. The business has higher bad debts this year compared to last year, which reduced profitability. That's better, but it's still not top tier. To hit the evaluative level and unlock those final, heavily weighted marks, you must execute higher order judgment. You must draw conclusions on relative importance and justify alternatives. Let's imagine our creative student, Sam, writing a paragraph here. Sam might say, while the strict new credit policy reduced bad debts, it is actually detrimental to the business overall because the resulting massive drop in total sales volume outweighs the savings from fewer defaults. Therefore, the business should alternative consider a tiered credit limit system. Boom, that is a flawless full mark response. It transitions from a mediocre observation to a justified, evidence-based recommendation. If the question asks, to what extent, and you only provide a descriptive list of facts, you are leaving massive amounts of marks on the table.
Let's bring it home with Section 4, Surviving Examiner Traps, where candidates lose marks.
I want you to do a mental spot the flaw exercise with me, based directly on the principal examiner reports. Here are the top 3 fatal mistakes candidates make every single year. Number 1, answers are often way too vague. Examiners absolutely hate broad generalizations. If you write, "This helps the business," the examiner will immediately ask, "How? Be specific." Number 2, forgetting to check proper format and presentation conventions. We just talked about how vital headings, dates, and terminology are. If you just draw a T account with no labels and throw numbers into it, you are throwing away professional skill marks. Examiners are actively hunting for precise structural formatting. And number 3, which is perhaps the single most deadly trap in the entire syllabus, providing generic answers that are not specific to the provided context. This is essentially a giant red flashing light from the examiners. Examiner alert. If you take away absolutely anything today from this explainer, let it be this unyielding, non-negotiable rule. Your answers must be firmly, deeply rooted in the evidence of the specific scenario given. Let's say the exam question is specifically about a small local hardware store that is suddenly struggling with cash flow and credit control. If your evaluative points just quote a generic textbook definition of credit limits, you will get 0 marks for that point. None. You must literally say, for this specific hardware store, implementing a tight credit limit might alienate their long-term local contractors who buy materials in bulk on credit. You have to bring their data, their industry, and their specific problems into your answer. Link every single solitary point back to the scenario. Do not give textbook answers to scenario-based questions.
Let's synthesize this entire masterclass into our core actionable pillars. To truly crush your Cambridge exams, I want you to memorize 3 overarching strategies derived from today's session. First, use the 3-step question scan. Before you write a single number, scan for cross-topic connections, pinpoint the exact command words, and extract the scenario's specific constraints. Second, use the paragraph balance formula. When answering written questions, balance your descriptive data with analytical comparisons and finish every single paragraph with an evaluative judgment. And third, utilize the last 5 minutes review checklist. Spend the end of your exam specifically verifying that your control accounts have proper format conventions and that your workings are clearly visible to leverage the method mark strategy. Applying these frameworks to real past papers ensures you are completely immune to examiner traps.
I'll leave you with this final provocative thought as you jump back into your past paper practice. Will your next control accounts answer fall into the generic context trap? Or will you secure top marks by proving your process through the method mark strategy? The examiner has given you the blueprint, the choice, and ultimately your final grade depends entirely on the strategic path you choose to take from here. Remember, mastering this requires consistent exposure to high-level strategy. So before you go, explicitly hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O and A levels at acetheexam_IGCSE. Turn on the notification bell for future exam hacks, and right now, leave a comment down below with your exact target grade for this syllabus. Claim it, work for it, and I will see you in the next strategy session. Keep analyzing.